I, 22 male, have a roommate, let's call him Alex 23 male, who moved in about 6 months ago. I honestly never considered Alex maybe trans, not that I would care if he was, but that's not the issue. He is a short guy and probably under 165 centimeters /5'5", has a lot facial hair, muscles, and looks a lot like a short Henry Cavill emo. No one I know has ever brought up this idea before. I've had my friends and family at our apartment before. This is really the part that gets to me because my mom is extremely against any gay people, and if she sensed anything was up she would have caused problems right away. Alex and I get along. We're polite but not really friends. He's quiet but super polite, always pays rent on time, helps with chores, and even shares his cooking with me. I appreciate having him around, especially because my last 3 roommates were each their own horror story. The issue came up when my girlfriend, let's call her Sarah F28, came over one day. Alex was shirtless. To clarify, I forgot to tell Alex that she was coming over, and she noticed the scars on his chest. After that she was quiet and short with me her entire stay there. When she got home, she blew up my phone, asking why I had a female living with me. I was confused and asked what she was on about. She says that she knows that his scars are from top surgery and that he is short, so he has to be trans, and a born female. I tried to explain that even if Alex is trans or a born female, that there is no way I'd be attracted to him, because to any person who looked at him, you would see a freaking guy. Plus he's respectful and doesn't cause drama like my last roommates, which she knows about. Just to be clear, I honestly still have no idea if Alex is even trans. I googled it, and those scars could be from some other surgery, like heart surgery or gynecomastia. And I really don't have an argument for him being short, but there is a lot of short men. At first Sarah wanted me to just ask Alex if he was trans, which why the fuck would I do that, or give her his last name so she can run a background check. I said no to both. Then she said this was a violation of trust and that if I didn't either find out at Alex is trans, and kick him out, or just kick him out, that she would have to reevaluate things. Basically threatening to break up. I said I don't do ultimatums and that we're done. Since then, she's been messaging me every single day for over 2 weeks, even after I blocked her on everything because she wouldn't leave me alone. Pissed that I wouldn't do this small thing for her. She ranges from, "Are you fucking him? Let's just talk. Why can't you at least give me closure and ask him?" to the most recent her telling our mutual friend about the situation. Our friend wants nothing a part of this shit show. I didn't feel bad at first, but after talking about it online, I've had some people say I should have just asked my roommate if he was indeed trans just to keep the peace, or that I shouldn't have essentially picked my roommate who I've only had for about 6 months over my girlfriend of 5 years. I wonder if I'm being unreasonable. I legitimately do not see how any straight dude could find Alex attractive, personally, but maybe I should have done something just to keep the peace. TLDR, my now ex-girlfriend thinks that my roommate is trans, told me to find out for sure or kick him out. I refused and broke up with her. Ida? Edit, to answer some questions, did you break up with her? Yes. During the text conversation we broke up. I always told her I had one rule, that I don't do ultimatums. If she were to say choose X or me, that I would leave. I put up with a lot of shit, verbal and physical, but I don't put up with that kind of BS. Ages? I was 17 and she was 22-23 when we got together. It's been a long time, so I'd have to look back to make sure. But yeah, I was for sure 17. We got together the day I turned 17, our anniversary is my birthday. We couldn't get together before then because of the age of consent in my state, which I get now is really fucked up. I don't know if it helps, but we have known each other our entire lives. My mom is her mom's best friend. When my mom worked, I would go over to Sarah's mom's house so I wasn't alone. We started talking and flirting when I was about 15 or 16, but didn't cross any physical lines until I turned 17 because I didn't want her to get arrested. I get that sounds bad. I really do. But at the time I didn't see it as bad. Just in case it is asked, our moms encouraged it. Why would you want to be with someone like that? I don't, I really don't. I didn't realize it was transphobia until some people here talked to me about it. I thought it was just her being jealous. But I get how fucked up it is now. Please understand, I live in the Bible Belt. I didn't even know trans people existed until I was 16. My personal thoughts is that I don't see a problem with people being trans and transitioning. I think at the end of the day it isn't my business. Is Alex trans? I have no clue. He could be, but he could have also had breast cancer, gyno, heart, lung, or any kind of other surgery. I used a photo from Google/Reddit because this whole time I personally thought he had gyno or something. But it's not my business. Is Alex safe? I'll talk to him when I get home and then talk to my landlord. I will change my gate code and also have her removed from the allowed guest list, and also ask my landlord to not let her in personally. She hasn't been too violent of a person in the past, but I also didn't know she was this insane in the past either. Was there abuse? I feel like this has been kinda implied in some questions. I don't know. Has she insulted me? Yes. Has she been physical? Yes. But nothing crazy. Slapping, pushing, shoving, but never anything like punching or drawing blood. Why use CM if you're American? I was born and raised American. However, I got a couple of friends who use metric from college, and after sharing a group chat with them for so long, the habit has stuck. If anyone cares, we're in automotive engineering. The photo? The photo is not actually Alex. I searched Google for gynosurgery photos and then found a Reddit post talking about it. I used it as a reference for what I mean. Scarring under the chest and around the nipple area. I definitely wouldn't actually post a photo of Alex here, censored or not. Update 1. I talked to Alex. I got advice saying to be upfront and tell him what's up completely, hide the trans part, and that I just shouldn't tell him. I don't know if this was the right thing, but I just told him, because once I was face to face with him I couldn't really help but do it. To clarify, I did not ask him about his scars or mention that specifically. I said my ex-girlfriend was under the impression he was a trans person, made sure to say I didn't care if he was or wasn't, and that I broke things off, changed the gate codes, put her on the do not let in list, all that drama. Before even saying anything, he asked if I was okay. Like I said, he is a chill dude. He also not so subtly asked the same questions that a lot of comments asked, essentially if I was in an abusive situation. I told him I don't know, but whatever kind of situation it was, it's over. The thing that really kinda fucked with me is that he called me his best friend. I regret not saying we were close in other comments. I realize now we have different definitions of close because he is introverted and I'm not. We talked about irrelevant stuff for a while and then the question came up, would you care if I was trans? To summarize things, yes, Alex is trans mask. He had top surgery when he was 19 and has been on hormones since he was 18. He even has a tattoo with the date he started testosterone. While the idea that he could have been a dude with gyno, cancer, or something else is completely reasonable, it just happens that Alex is trans. And I don't care about that, Alex is Alex. I did show him the post and got permission to update things. I would not have otherwise. He is also roaming this post somewhere, but probably won't comment. Notes: Alex is going to help me out with finding some low-cost or pay scale therapy because he personally hasn't heard good things about the college's therapy services. Like everyone else has said, yes, it was abuse. I see that. I will also hold higher standards for myself in the future. Alex sent me the information for the therapist he sees and I'll contact them in the morning. The landlord knows there is a domestic incident and I trust him when it comes to making sure my ex doesn't show up. The do not allow list was made in mind for this reason. I am not ready to talk to my mom about this. But I hope with some therapy and time I will be. She knows something is going on, but she believes this is a break and not a breakup. Sorry if this sounds like rambling, it is. This has been a rough couple of weeks, my brain is fried and I'm tired. Keep in mind, I'm still a full-time student during this. I also have to keep my grades up for my grants, scholarships, government aid, etc. I appreciate all the advice, kicks in the rear, and the sympathy. A side note, I have seen a lot of trans people comment on this post and I have had a few reach out to me in private. I am thankful for your comments as well. It has brought to my attention how tough things are out there because I honestly felt what I did was the bare minimum and not worthy of praise because it should just be expected. But I see that it is being praised for how low of a bar there is when it comes to human decency towards you. And I'm sorry for that and hope things get better. Update 2. I talked to the therapist Alex recommended. Normally I would be on the wait list until January, but due to the situation the therapist referred me to one of his associates and I'll be seen as early as next week. I also was recommended to attend a domestic violence support group that gathers once a month. I was originally not going to go because the idea was uncomfortable as fuck, but Alex said he'll go with me so at least I'll know someone there and we can leave if it's too weird for me. My mom is aware of the breakup, she is not too happy. I did not mention the trans part, I said that Sarah was being controlling and I didn't want to put up with it anymore. Got the usual, that's a normal part of any relationship comments, but I stood my ground. My mom seems to be under the same delusion as Sarah that this is a small argument or something and we will get back together. But that is absolutely no happening. I don't really talk to Sarah's mom, so I don't know her thoughts on the matter. The landlord is aware of the situation and will not let Sarah in, should she try to show up. If you don't have the gate code, you have to go to the main office and the employee, landlord's son, will buzz the person in if they are on your accepted people list or call the tenant and ask if they aren't on the list. If the individual is on the do not let in list, especially if it involves a criminal matter, they will be asked to leave. If they don't leave, then it becomes trespassing. I know this sounds like a lot, but the security is why a lot of people live here. Notes after reading some comments, I am sorry for trivializing my abuse. It still feels weird to say abuse, but I do know that it is abuse. Slapping, pushing, and shoving is physical abuse, and if another person came up and told me their partner was doing that, I would call it abuse. It's not that I don't think women can be abusive, but as I said in one of the comments, I don't view it as abuse when it's towards me. This is probably due to being abused by my mom, which I'm going to get help for. For reference, when I mention my mom's abuse, it's why I'm low contact with her. The reason why I was extremely underweight as a kid is because she just straight up didn't feed me a lot of the time. CPS got called a lot, but never did anything. They also didn't take any claims by my teachers that I was being abused as creditable because there were no marks or bruises, which has warped my view on abuse. Going forward, if I date again, then I won't put up with any physical or verbal abuse. A couple of comments helped by saying that if I was confused on if it was wrong, to think about if it was another person going through it. which has been helpful in what I feel is right and wrong treatment towards me. After a lot of talking, it turns out Alex and I have been friends this whole time, but because I've never had an introvert friend before, I didn't exactly realize. Alex says he didn't want to annoy me by trying to chat with me all the time, which ironically is what I was feeling. Now we're going to hang out more and he is trying to get me to join the D&D game he is in. Update 3. I've been focusing on my mental health and keeping up with school, but overall, I'm doing better than I ever have. I've been going to therapy every week, it'll be every other week starting in January, attending a domestic violence support group every other week, playing D&D weekly, and I've made several new friends through the support group and D&D. Honestly, if it weren't for Alex, I'm not sure I'd have made it this far. He's driven me to therapy, gone to the support group with me even though he didn't need to, got me into D&D, and introduced me to his friends, who are now also my friends. As for Sarah, who I regret giving that fake name because one of my new friends has the same name, she's in jail. After my initial post, Sarah tried to show up at my apartment, but because she was on the do not let in list, she wasn't allowed in. Instead, she waited for another resident to open the gate, ducked behind their car, and tried to sneak in. She was caught immediately, and the landlord called the police to issue her a formal trespass notice. After that, I began the process of getting a PPO. A week later, Sarah was arrested on charges unrelated to my apartment. She was arrested for trespassing, after warning, resisting without violence, and disorderly conduct. She's currently in jail, awaiting her court date. It's likely not going to go well for her since she was already on probation for a second DWI/DUI, and one of the conditions of her probation was to not break the law. How do I know all this? A mutual friend posted it on his Snap story. More good news, my PPO was approved on Monday. It took too long in my opinion, but whatever, it's finally done. Now, for some difficult news, I'm officially no contact with my mom. I know, logically, this is the right decision because she's not a healthy person, but it still hurts. After talking with my therapist and in support group, I realized that my views on healthy relationships and abuse were really warped, especially by my mom. I know some might say it's important to forgive her or at least give her a chance to change, but I just can't. I can't bring myself to forgive her. She neglected me as a child, physically and verbally abused me into adulthood, and even encouraged me to date an adult when I was a minor. After reflecting on everything, I also can't bring myself to say I love her. I realize I only felt that way out of obligation and pity. My mom was taken advantage of when she was a minor, which led to her pregnancy with me, and I do feel bad for her. But instead of seeking help, she chose not to. Now, I'm using her as a reverse moral compass. Whatever she did, I now try to do the opposite. This Christmas, I'm spending time with Alex and his family, which I guess is now also my family. I'm really thankful for the continued support from all of you, and I'll try to provide more updates moving forward. Now on to second story. Discovered my fiancé's secret life with Sarah, told her the truth, and now fear confronting her at a gala event. Almost a decade ago, I found out my fiancé, who I had been with for many years, was still with Sarah, the woman he had been dating for years before we got together, the one he told me he had broken up with to date me. It broke my heart and horrified me. I was, in my eyes, essentially his mistress for the entirety of our relationship, and because I did not question certain things enough, I had allowed him to cheat on her with me. I decided shortly after I found out to go to Sarah's house and tell her the truth. It went about as well as you'd expect. After she initially opened the door, I quickly and succinctly word vomited his betrayal, my existence, the seriousness of our relationship, and how I never knew about their continued relationship until a few days earlier. I then told her I was done with him, would have never dated him if I had known he was still with her, and thought she had the right to know what had been going on. She said nothing, seemingly stunned more than anything. After a long pause, she slowly closed the door in my face. I did email her once more after that to give her my contact information and offered to answer any questions she might have, because I certainly had a ton of questions about how so many years of my life were a lie, but she never reached out and I didn't want her to feel like I was harassing her, so I left it alone after that. The last I heard, she and my ex had parted ways immediately afterward and she moved to a neighboring state in a field unrelated to her previous business. Let's say that previous business was teapot design. She was a locally renowned teapot designer, which doesn't pay great, but she had tried hard for years to make it a profitable profession. And in one fell swoop it ended because my ex had stepped out of his relationship with her for one with me. Fast forward to the present day, I am now working a prestigious dream job at a vaguely tea-related organization in the very Mayberry-esque small town that my ex and Sarah had lived in. Their old house is a short walk away from my new workplace. I have no fears that anyone in town knows of my involvement with her ex. She was a presence in the community and he was not, and they did a lot of things very independently of each other. So I actually doubt many people in town even knew my ex really existed. The sale of their house and her business happened so quickly that a lot of people locally didn't even know she had left for months after she had gone. He moved away at the same time. However, people in the area still know Sarah and remember her skills as a teapot designer fondly. A few weeks ago I was meeting with a board member of mine over a tea-related project complete with a gala and on-site teapot designing station. He mentioned the possibility of bringing notable teapot designers into work during the party to add to the experience and specifically name-dropped Sarah. I was very much caught off guard, and tried to recover by casually asking, "Oh, I thought she had moved out of state a few years back?" And then that's when I got to hear my board member give me the Spark Notes version of what I already knew. Yeah, things didn't work out with the guy she was dating. He was cheating on her, and she left, but she still comes back from time to time. She's giving some design classes at local nonprofit in a few months. The proposed gala may not happen. This board member tends to come up with grand ideas that don't always pan out, or may not happen in the way my board member pictured it. However, the whole interaction has sent me spiraling and unlocked a new fear in me, meeting the person whose personal and professional life I ruined in my work setting. If my board member's plan does go through, and a gala is organized with Sarah in attendance, what should I do? In my role at this organization, I'm most likely going to be in some form of contact with her at such an event. My last name has changed since we met, but she will probably still recognize my face despite the fact that I've aged a bit since our only face-to-face interaction. I also have no idea how she feels about me after all this time. I don't know if she blames me for what happened and harbors resentment towards me. From the little I know of her, I don't think she would cause a scene, but I simply do not know. Should I pretend I'm just meeting her for the first time? Do I have a responsibility to share the situation with my board member and my boss in case something happens during any interaction with her, or to get them to help me stay away from her? Should I just try my best to just avoid her without explanation too? Anyone? I never thought I'd have to deal with my ex's ex in a workplace setting. The relationship with my ex was very traumatic, and not just because of what happened to Sarah. It took me years of therapy to deal with the fallout of that relationship. This new potential situation is giving me nightmares. Update 1. So I decided to let it go. About 3 months after my letter was published, in a similar meeting with my boss and the same board member, the board member brought up Sarah again, as a designer for the gala that may or may not happen in the future for the project we are working on. And he repeated the conversation almost verbatim, that Sarah had been cheated on and left the area, but came back. I finally asked him how he knew Sarah was back in the area, and she said she moved back to major city over an hour away, and was running a few designing classes at a local nonprofit, which I confirmed on their website. After the meeting ended, I asked my boss if she had a minute, and I calmly, professionally laid out the situation of one of the most traumatizing events of my personal life, giving my boss only the relevant details, and expressing my concern over Sarah seeing me, that I didn't know how she would react. I could remain professional, but it might be best if I had a back-of-house role if this project did move forward. My boss suggested that we go with another designer for the project. However, I didn't want to take any work away from Sarah. My boss reassured me by saying, "It's not board members' decision who we pick if we even do pick a designer." She also guessed that he was so fixated on Sarah because his wife had taken private lessons from Sarah in the past. There are plenty of other designers in the area, and if we even do this project, it's up to event staff for scheduling any designers, not a board member. And, also, we weren't even at that stage yet. Then she commented on me having a better catch with my husband, who everyone in my job knows and loves. She didn't know my ex personally, but she had heard things about him based on the breakup with Sarah. So, based on no actual research but hearsay, I think Sarah moved back to our state a little while ago, but is well over an hour away from this small town. I believe she is still working in the job she picked up after she left here, and is doing design on the side with her old contacts in this area. Maybe one day she'll move back to the area, but with housing prices the way they are, I doubt that will be anytime soon. And even if it is, she has every right to move to this town, and I have every right to work here. A few weeks after this meeting, I was pulling out of the parking lot of my local grocery store when I saw my ex. He did a double take. My car is very conspicuous. I had just bought it weeks before we broke up, and then started smiling and waving as if we were old friends. I had sunglasses on and pretended not to see him, but it sent me spiraling. That grocery store is not exactly one along a major route, it's mostly a neighborhood grocery store, which means he most likely lived nearby. I don't know if it was healthy, but I looked up property records in our county using his name. Turns out he bought a house 1.5 miles away from me a year after my husband and I bought our house. He's literally within walking distance of my home. Is it a coincidence? Probably, but I still feel so violated. He took so much away from me in the 10 years we were together, and for several years after that. He chased me out of a nonprofit I loved that we both volunteered at because he wouldn't leave me alone to do my own thing there, kept trying to be friends and kissed me when we were doing a task alone. My response was to slap him. He has shown up to 2 previous workplaces under the guise of conducting business so I couldn't kick him out, and even sent an anonymous package to my house a month before my wedding with books that only he would have thought I would have liked. It was confirmed sent by him when he was confronted about it. I don't feel safe interacting with him, although I couldn't tell you what I am afraid of, exactly. He told me right after I broke up with him that he had sociopathic tendencies, and I don't really know what that means. I don't want to have to look over my shoulder wondering if I'm going to run into him at the store with my child. I don't want him anywhere near me or knowing anything about my life these days. But I also recognize that my spiraling, so long after our breakup, was only hurting me. I've been in therapy ever since. But I don't think I would have considered any of this as trauma without the wonderful commenters on this blog. And a special shout out to commenter Don't Send Your Kids to Hudson University for recommending the Something Was Wrong podcast. I'm on season 16 at the moment. It really did help me put my own experience into a kinder perspective, hearing similar stories of people who were emotionally and mentally abused and also struggled with letting go of these relationships. So, still feeling lots of shame about the situation and now aware that a man with sociopathic tendencies who thinks he did nothing wrong to me lives less than a 5K race away from me, but I'm trying to navigate through it.